Good morning, everyone. Today is Wednesday, the 12th of Adar 1. Charlie, I noticed you're saying Kaddish for, what's the name? Sadi? Bas? Yosef. We'll dedicate the learning to her memory. In today's lesson, humility meditation. One's ability to desire evil makes a person lower than an insect. Oof. Add to that the negative effect of past sins, which we'll discuss tomorrow. No wonder one is not spiritually attuned. Guys, trust the process. The Alter Rebbe is certainly not trying to make us sad and melancholy and just trying to humble us. If we're going to humble our spirit, humble our nefesh habahamis, it's actually humbling ourselves. So he's going to point out some obvious things, which may be a little painful to the touch, a little sting, a little touch, but ultimately is for our own good, as we'll soon see. The Alter Rebbe now proceeds to suggest various lines of reasoning that the Beinoni, each and every one of us, the average guy, may use in order to humble and crush his spirit. As we said, if you want to light up a person, ignite a soul, ignite that spark, just like you want to splinter a log so that it lights easier and better, we got to crush ourselves, the sitra achara, and our spirit, and humble ourselves in order to light ourselves up and inspire ourselves to do better. So the first of these follows from we might be great, we might do a lot of good things, but we know we have to be honest with ourselves. There's a lot going on that we can improve upon, and this is according to the Alter Rebbe the way to do it. So the first of these following, that a person, let me start over. The first of these follows from the point just concluded that the personality of the Beinoni is, in fact, an expression of the Sitra Achra. The tzaddik expresses himself through his godly soul, but the Beinoni, for better or for worse, and I say for better because if we harness the nefesh habahamis, then it could work for us, and we could become a powerhouse in our service of Hashem. But for worse is because the nefesh habahamis has a lot of other pursuits that we have to control and we have to work against sometimes. A person expresses himself through his animal soul, as we say by the Beinoni nefesh hashenis b'Yisrael. It's like we have our animal soul. That's what keeps us alive. That's what keeps us functioning, eating, and doing all the bodily things we need to do. And then we have the godly soul. Whereas a tzaddik is purely the godly soul because he completely subjugates, transforms, and has his nefesh habahamis in check. So if so, that he is actually the animal soul. When he speaks, it's the animal soul speaking. What does that mean? Because okay, let's hope we want pure things, holy things. But often that's not the case. It turns out, and if we're being honest with ourselves, that many times it's the opposite. What are we thinking during davening? What are we thinking during davening is the easy part, as the end of today says. Yeah, during davening we have a good moment, but we all know that once we put the tefillin away, we hit the road, somebody said something in the parking lot, and suddenly we're back to square one, and sometimes even worse. So we have all sorts of lustful and jealousy and evil desires and thoughts and words that we say. Even if he doesn't actually do them, mamish chas v'shalom. Nevertheless, all these things are not repulsive to him. They happen. Sometimes later on he regrets them. Sometimes not. Our minds are. There was a comedian used to say, "A mind is a terrible thing." No, the saying is, "A mind is a terrible thing to waste." Mind is a terrible thing. No, the next two words. Right, to waste. The mind's a terrible thing. So why are they not repulsive to him when they come across his mind? And yesterday you said you weren't going to think those things or say those things. Why? Because you're not a tzaddik. So this is our place. This is our fight every day. In the fact that he lets his mind, it happens to all of us. So therefore he becomes inferior and more loathsome and abominable than unclean animals and insects, and even reptiles, as mentioned above. For even though they don't transgress against Hashem's will, that's how they're created. They just do their job. They slither around. They're little bugs. They annoy you in your ear. That's it. He says we're even worse than them. It's like a Kumaisha Kasav. It says in Tehillim 22:7. You can look it up if you want. The Tehillim says, "But I am a worm and not a man." As a human being who chooses to lower himself to the level of worm, I am worse than a worm. The worm doesn't think to himself, "Oh, I want to lower myself to a lesser than a worm," or some kind of a little, a cockroach doesn't say, today I want to think like a worm. My ego is getting to me, so I want to try to humble myself. They don't think that way. They just do what they do, and that's it. They do what they do. They eat, they sleep, they go to the bathroom, they have their kids, they run around, and that's it. They build a home. They just animals are animals. But we sometimes, unfortunately, it happens as a Beinoni. And again, this is in order to crush our spirit. Trust the process. We're trying to get to a certain point where we humble ourselves. And if we don't completely push out all the extraneous and evil thoughts from our mind, then we have the choice to do it. And we end up, let me just finish. We end up falling into that trap. Again, you want to come up with an excuse? Sure. This is the way God created us. Free choice. Our mind wanders. We're on the level of a bini. We're not on the level of tzaddik. But that's the reality. So what about the times when the divine soul of the Beinoni dominates, like during davening, when he experiences love of Hashem and he doesn't think about mundane matters? And here it says in parentheses, "V'gam kshemis gaberes boy nafshe likis." During the davening, when his soul is yearning and he's focused on the davening and the learning, unfortunately, this is not completely genuine. Why? We see for a fact. Because the minute as soon as he transitions after the davening, suddenly, boom, it vanishes away. Sometimes he doesn't even get out the door and his mind is on to other things. Okay, but that's where we are. So the takeaway, I don't want to give you too much credit because that's going to come. We have to break ourselves. We have to feel bad. Okay, every day it's the same thing. Yesterday I promised I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to think that. I wasn't going to get distracted. What happened? And then you set up tools and you try to stop yourself by doing this and by doing that and thinking this and thinking that. All the different ideas that we thought of, but it happens again. So contemplation to break, quote unquote, the splinter, self-centeredness of the animal soul. How do we do that? At the animal element of my character, not the intrinsic essence of who we are, the neshama, but my character. This is who I am. This is the way I talk. This is the way I carry myself. So on that level, I'm actually lower than an animal because the animal can't do anything other than what God wishes it to do. And I, on the other hand, often desire things that are against God's desire. So important third time reminder that this is in order to crush our spirit and our sitra achra. This is not to make us upset. This is not to make us angry. This is not to make us sad. In fact, the more we crush our sitra achra, the more we crush our spirit that seems to drift away from Hashem, even though we know better, the more we can try to improve on the other end and get closer to Hashem, because our godly soul will be the one expressed in the way we talk, and the way we think, and the way we act. But until that point, we have to continue fighting and humbling our spirit. So that's it for today. It's supposed to bring us, it's going to get even worse, by the way, I'm sorry. But that's just the reality. The Alter Rebbe is giving us, and Pinchas Treisman used to tell, Pinchas used to say, I love Tanya because it's like Musar. I love Tanya because he likes Musar. So he says, I like Musar. That's why I like Tanya. The Alter Rebbe is putting our nefesh habahamis, our evil traits, our evil thoughts in its place to break them down so that he can allow the neshama to shine forth. So let's try to do that. Let's practice that. But don't let it get you sad. It's the Yetzer Hara's job. It's the Sitra Achra's job. And it's your nefesh habahamis' natural instinct to do what it does. We have to try to allow the godly soul to dominate, to put the nefesh habahamis in its place, and in fact, work for you. And then you'll be able to go so much higher, so much farther, and conquer so much more, making the world a better and a brighter place. Yeshikach, everyone. Have a good day.